I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome back to News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this mass shooting that occurred in Canada, and the suspect, a trans person, is a man who identifies as a woman, which the authorities were saying that he identifies as a female, and I'm like, you can identify as a female. That shouldn't really matter because, female has to do with your sex. So even if we're getting to the gender ideology stuff, that's still a weird way to phrase it. But that's, I guess, what they're focused on when there's like a loss of life. The pronouns and all that stuff. So we'll talk about a bit about that today. And also, there was some continued blowback from the story that we covered yesterday about Carrie Bowler, who was sitting on a religious liberty committee and decided to defend Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and say they've never said anything anti-Semitic, and come after people for really pushing on them to be like, oh, if you're anti-Zionist, then you're anti-Semitic, and oh, Catholics don't believe in Zionism. Are you saying all Catholics are anti-Semites? And just really tried to take everything hostage. And so she ended up getting removed from the committee, and she was already gearing herself up to be someone who was targeted for religious reasons, and is getting a lot of follows on X by some not good people, I guess. But yeah, she probably, it looks like to some people, planned to hijack it, and there are people who were pulling out their phones and stuff before she started talking to, I guess, create a viral moment and grandstand a bit. So she definitely should be let go from the committee, but it is a problem that she was on it in the first place. And I'm a little surprised that she was on it in the first place, especially since she is she talked very passionately about how Catholics think or ought to think or whatever. But she's only been a convert for a little while, like less than a year. So I wonder who put her there in the first place. And just not great stuff coming out of the Trump admin, but good on the committee, I guess, for getting rid of her. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blackteens.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the website as well. You guys can also check out different books and stuff that I have written, like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And I have some nonfiction. Slay Your Fear is nonfiction. I have fiction books you guys can check out for older readers and younger readers and so on. So you guys can check that out. I also have my book Bigger, which you can see behind me, which is a picture book. You guys can check out the link in the description if you would like to check out the book for yourself and your kiddos or nieces and nephews or your neighbors, friends, and all kind of stuff. You guys can check that out. So let's hop to it. I do kind of have a rant about AI a bit, but we'll save that to the end if we have time, because some interesting things in the AI world, at least for me, going on. So I'm going to read a little bit from this CNN article, but they don't really break the ice with what's going on. So I'll tell you. But to read a little bit, police identify suspect in Canada mass shooting as investigation into motive continues. And this was posted updated last at 3:45. Yeah, I don't know why they don't have more details on this, but police have identified the suspect in the shootings that left at least 8 dead and a dozen wounded at a school and home in Northeast British Columbia, Canada. On Tuesday, the suspect is an 18-year-old and resident of the area who was found dead at the scene with a self-inflicted injury. Authorities are still investigating a motive. 6 of the victims were found dead at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, making it Canada's deadliest school shooting in decades, police said. The bodies of 2 people, the suspect's relatives, were found at a home in the town, which has just 2,400 people. So it's always sad when anything like this happens, but um, and in small towns, it's really, really devastating because so many people know each other. And then it's also just a tragedy when people are so young. Victims also included several students and a teacher. Police said authorities revised the death toll to 8 this afternoon, saying one of the victims, who was thought to have died from injuries, survived. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has told people in Tumbler Ridge, "The nation mourns with you. Mass shootings are rare in Canada, a country with much stricter gun laws than the US." Um, and then there's more of another article. Police said Wednesday that most of the victims of the school shooting in Tumbler Ridge are quite young and that families are still being notified of their conditions. We're currently ongoing with the family notification, said Deputy Commissioner Dwayne McDonald of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I will say, as I mentioned before, that most of our victims are quite young. Most were born at 2013, 2012. Yeah, that's not that long ago. I get the older you get, it's amazing that I don't know, there's people who are 20 something years old who were born in 2000, you know. People got jobs and kids of their own. Sergeant Vanessa Munn added at the end of the presser that the victims included 3 12-year-old female students, 2 male students ages 12 and 13, correcting earlier ages quoted by McDonald. Any public identification of victims, McDonald continued, would be closely coordinated with family members. This is incredibly traumatic, and so we'll deal with and work with the families, cooperate with them in terms of release of the identities of victims, McDonald said. We don't want to create additional trauma for families that are dealing with probably the worst circumstances of their lives. Yeah, that is terrible. That is terrible. So, the article from CNN here didn't mention any names. But we do know a little bit more. And this person was someone who was trans. And the folks in leadership are being a little weird as far as the whole pronoun thing. I saw this news starting to kind of break last night. See, some people are noting that the story is kind of dying down a bit. I don't know what it's like in Canada. I would assume when certain stories don't hit certain narrative points, it's like this is a terrible thing, and then it just kind of go away. But I know mass shootings in Canada are pretty rare. But so I would assume we talk about it for a minute.
We do believe the suspect acted alone, and there are currently no other outstanding suspects. Our investigators remain on scene, actively gathering information to determine the full circumstances of what transpired. This is a deeply distressing incident where 9 individuals have senselessly lost their lives. Our thoughts are with the families, the loved ones, the first responders in the greater Tumbler Ridge community, and all those impacted by this tragic incident. If you have questions, I'm prepared to take them at this time.
Officer Rivera, could you please expand a little bit on the suspect? Was he known to police? Were there any red flags regarding his mental health?
So a suspect is identified as an 18-year-old female by the name of Jessie. We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues. We do.
So, there are some red flags. We don't know the extent of how red, what shade, how dark it was, how deep it was, how rich these flags are. But it is amazing that in many of these stories, like there was the Uvalde situation where the person came into school and that's what they were trying to keep the parents from going into saving the kids. That individual was really insane. There was talk of him abusing, like, I think his girlfriend and or women in his life and things like that. But he had a bag of dead cats, just crazy stories that were going around and stuff about that individual's mental health. So there's definitely a lot of flags, and I don't understand. I know we have. There's all these red flag laws that people push, and I'm like, what do you do about the flags? And I know that Canada, they just have harsher gun laws than we do here in the United States of America. But there's obviously a mental health issue with this individual, not just because he was called several times, but also identifying as a female when you are in fact a male is not good mental health. I'm not making the case that everybody who is trans or something is violent or going to do something to this degree or whatever, but it is not, you're not in a good headspace if you're going to identify as a different gender. And there are underlining conditions that are causing the dysphoria, this confusion with your body. And so many people just want to affirm those sorts of things instead of getting to the heart of the matter. And when you play into people's delusions and just give in to that anguish, that mental distress, as opposed to really learning how to deal with that and deal with reality, it puts people in a bad spot. When you decide to capitulate to people's mental illness rather than you working with them to face reality, it does give a lot of them different complexes as far as what they can get away with in their world. And people need accountability in general, and just because you are unwell doesn't mean that you don't need it too. And deciding that you're going to rearrange people's speech, um rearrange laws and all sorts of different things around people's feelings, their vibes, it doesn't say, hey, we like accountability. So I just don't think it's obviously okay to detach people from reality. I'm not trying to say just because you're trans that you're going to go shoot somebody up, though it is a very small amount of people who identify as trans in the world, I guess, in general, but it is an interesting amount of shooters that do identify that way. But I don't think it's because there's something inherently violent about those people. It's because there's something unwell about people who would actually identify in that kind of way. And the relative that I believe he killed was his mother, who was supportive. And I just wish that this person had gotten some kind of adequate help instead of surrendered into the delusion. Maybe people would be alive today, maybe they wouldn't. But just going along with it's not helping. So my heart goes out to the families. It's always terrible when you lose someone very suddenly, unexpectedly. And it's very hard when you lose someone young, when you lose your own flesh and blood, when you lose a child. And I hate that anything like this happens in the world, whether it's here, whether it's Australia, whether it's in the United States of America. We have to take mental health more seriously everywhere. And every time we have a conversation about mental health, because that's what the left will say, it's the guns, and people on the right are like, it's mental health. Or we need to talk. We could talk about guns, but we need to talk about how we're going to secure people from gun violence, not just get rid of all the guns. And a lot of people on the left will be like, they'll name policies, a lot that we already do, but a lot of them will just be like, I don't know, kind of want to just confiscate, which isn't going to happen. And maybe there's a little discussion about mental health, but not doing serious things about mental health. And when I look at the mental health, I'm like, I don't think people want people to not be unwell in this country, or maybe the world, I guess, because we capitulate to delusion. Did you know Hillary Clinton, she had wrote an op-ed about Allie Beth Stuckey and her toxic empathy book and toxic empathy brand. I don't know if the whole thing was about her, but when I saw that she talked about the toxic empathy stuff, and I knew that was the Allie's thing. But I didn't realize that she like actually called her out. I thought it was just like an illusion. It's kind of strange when the former first lady, who's also senator, secretary of state, and who also was very close to being president, calls you out. And so I watched a little interview with Allie about it, and them talking about toxic empathy. And she said the reason when empathy becomes toxic is when you start affirming people's sin, when you start affirming people's lies. And then she gave another reason as well. She gave 3 different reasons. But the example that she gave was the gender delusion stuff. When you could say, oh, I feel a lot for these people, and your feelings are so deep that you decide that you're going to affirm and say, hey, this person is a boy, or this person is a girl, when that's not the case, that you're going to adhere to their pronouns, that you're going to let people change the laws, that you're going to let a man coming in the locker room and jeopardize women's safety, women's privacy, how they're comfortable in that space, all because you feel so strongly for these other people who are having feelings. And that makes perfect sense to me. And people try to pretend like what Allie says is insane. To me, Allie has a lot of compassion for people, and I don't agree with her on everything theologically. We'd have strong disagreements on some things theologically, but she always, from my observance, delivers her critiques and her commentary in a very respectful and loving sort of corrective way. So people thinking that she's so cruel for talking about toxic empathy and that, spreading on, especially from Hillary Clinton, who got on The View and talked about how babies don't have due dates literally the day that they're going to be born, or maybe she said the day before. No, she said hours before their due date. Someone like that is criticizing Allie Beth Stuckey on toxic empathy. Allie, who doesn't want us to rewarp reality around people's feelings who are having obvious underlining mental delusions. And this is another one that's just stacked on top of it. There are people who were whistleblowers for an organization and hospitals that were just giving trans surgeries. And one of the concerns was that there were some people who had some violent tendencies, but they still were going to go ahead and start transitioning them. There are real perverted people. The Wachowski brothers, by the way, they decided, I believe that's the name of the people who did the Matrix and stuff. They're both identify as women now. I saw an interview with one of them, and they got into like being trans after they were like watching a bunch like porn and other things like that. Like that's what got them down that road. You think that makes me want to go like, yeah, that person is a woman. Yeah, I want that person in my space. There's so many people online who are trans activists, and they're guys saying that they're women, and they complain about not having access to the women's bathrooms and stuff. And they have like OnlyFans and things like that. Like, I don't want to share my bathroom with male pornographers who are delusional and say that they're women, but that's well, we gotta oblige them because of empathy. No, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And talking about this stuff, frankly, is apparently hateful. And we know Charlie Kirk lost his life because people said he was hateful. When he could be very blunt, he could be very direct. He could be at times a little childish, to be frank. But a lot of times he was he could be very compassionate, especially and reasonable, especially one-on-one talking to people. I didn't always agree with Charlie. I didn't. Sometimes I tone policed him. Sometimes I was just wrong. I just didn't agree about his conclusions on certain things. Like some things on abortion, some things on, I guess, political tactics, the way he would go about with some racial issues. I didn't always agree with them, but his life was also taken not by a trans shooter, but someone dating someone who was trans. So there's been a lot of conversations in the past about this stuff. And we should have continued having more discussions about these things, especially after Charlie died. There's a lot of distraction from crazy conspiracies that are, by the way, only getting worse concerning Candace and Erica and other folks in that sphere. But we have to keep fighting against this particular issue, and we should have never allowed the world to get as crazy as it has been. Hillary is talking about her because Allie is more relevant than she is. That isn't that interesting? That's I mean Allie's is very popular. Her podcast is very popular, especially with women. And there's guys who listen to Allie's show, but her having influence in an audience is really good, because she speaks to a space that I think a lot of people on the right kind of struggle with. So some of it might not even be about Hillary's lack of influence and talking about her. It could just be this is a white woman with a voice that's speaking to a demographic we really need to pull away from the GOP, and we don't need her common sense and calm attitudes to sway any of these people. You know, it just, it could have really been a targeted. I mean, she called her out, but there could be some kind of higher planning to get rid of Allie. And it's unfortunate she's really getting it from both sides, because Allie is getting it from like the Groyper sort of right, especially after she had talked about Candace and some of her conspiracy theories revolving Charlie. And they want to push that, you know, she's a mean girl, I guess, with her Bible stuff, and which isn't the case. But and Allie also gets it from like the red pill community, who kind of feel like she ought to just be silent, and they feel like women who speak out about these issues are kind of feminist coded anyway, so they hate her. So she gets it from a lot of different sides, but I feel that Allie is pretty genuine in her commentary, which is rare, and I think that's a threat to a lot of people too, in the right wing space, because there's a lot of people who say things for audience capture and engagement, clicks and views, and you may not agree with her, but I feel that she's always been sincere, and that's one reason why I think Tucker attacked Ben a lot, and especially after October the 7th, because Tucker said that someone who would talk about like foreign countries, or be more focused on foreign countries while people are dying of fentanyl, must hate their country, or, you know, hate America. Like that's he said something along those lines, and then he continued talking about Ben, and Ben tried to sit down with Tucker, and Tucker wouldn't really do anything. And so that was another reason why when Ben sat down with Megyn Kelly, and Megyn Kelly's all like, "Oh, well, what about this?" and you know, try to kind of bridge the gap. And he's like, "This isn't personal. Like he said like things about me, but this is not personal. Like this is a moral issue as far as Tucker saying things that aren't true, that aren't really conservative, and that are undermining America's position in the world, and trying to uplift and advance our enemies for whatever reasons Tucker's deciding to do that." But that is the case. It's not personal. But yeah, I don't want to get into a big rant about Megyn Kelly today, but someone said, "I am making the case that if you have a penis and say that you are female, you are mentally ill." I second that. I definitely second that. And there are people who have issues with their body, and like body dysmorphia, or gender confusion or whatever, or they feel very uncomfortable, but they realize that that's just a feeling that they have, and it doesn't, that they're not trying to press it forward more than that. Like Chad Felix Green, for example, had like those sorts of feelings. He read a book called When Harry Became Sally that really helped him deal with a lot of those issues, which was unfortunate that Amazon, I don't know if they sell it now, but they like were trying to say that it was hateful, and it was kind of being banned or whatever at the time. It was a big controversy like a couple years ago, but yeah. You can find a way to live with that sort of distress, even conquer that sort of distress. And unfortunately, a lot of people who have that sort of distress, it's just a lot of it's just growing pains, filling out a displaced, you know, struggling, growing up with puberty. You know, there was one girl who did a post about how she wanted to chop off her breast, and or had said stuff about chopping off her breast and all kinds of different stuff. And she's like, and do boy things. And she just realized later in life that she had a brother that was larger in life, and she just really idolized him. And that's where a lot of that, her being uncomfortable kind of being a woman, because she just kind of wanted to be like someone else. It wasn't an issue that she had with actually being female, actually with her body. It was just her admiring someone and not being confident in who she was. And if you looked at the photo that she had that day in the present, very girly, very feminine, very beautiful. And this was someone who wanted to be a boy, or would say something about being a boy. But if you have sort of conflicting feelings about growing up, you go in some kind of rabbit hole, and then you, I don't know, you come out the other end, not in Wonderland, but with your penis snapped off. So it's really unfortunate, really unfortunate. So anyway, my heart goes out to the people affected from this tragedy, but I hope that we can actually take mental health seriously, and not just say that, and encourage people to be mentally ill. That's really the problem. That's really the problem. And this isn't the only way that our society encourages mental illness. But it's a big one. It's a big one. Anyway, yesterday we talked about how the White House has a religious liberty committee, and they've had a couple different meetings. And yesterday we focused on one particular former beauty queen. I didn't know she was a beauty queen when we were talking about all this stuff yesterday, but apparently there's some rabbit hole stuff about this lady. But she had just wanted to refocus the entire thing on Zionism and things like that. And she ended up putting on an American and Palestine pin and stuff. So if you see some clips and she's not wearing it, she didn't wear it the whole time. But she ended up being fired. So she got to it with Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee and some other folks, and was like, well, Catholics don't believe in Zionism. So are you saying all Catholics are anti-Semitic? And which she's hasn't even been Catholic for a full year. Like, there are other people there who were Catholics and had high positions or whatever. And so her trying to be that authority voice was very odd and really not her place. And then it was just also not her place, because that's not what the council was about. They were hearing different testimonies about students who didn't receive their full liberties while on college campuses because people were blocking them for being Jewish, picking on them for being Jewish, and this in schools not doing enough to protect them and different things like that. So that those sorts of things were what was supposed to be the focus, not arguing about Israel and the support of the Israeli government and Zionism. And people want to conflate different theological views on Israel with what Zionism actually is, in a political sense, and with what the actual definition is. So I'm not surprised that she got canned. Of course, she's been gearing up I'm a persecuted victim thing. But someone who was there yesterday for Heritage ended up writing, Miss Prajine Bowler converted to Catholicism in April, but lectured witnesses, including a priest as well as a fellow Catholic, commissioners on their faith. One commissioner, Ryan Anderson, read her excerpts from the Second Vatican Council's Nostra, and Popes John Paul II and Benedict, that's 16, in rebuttal. But what do they know? So she hasn't been Catholic for very long, but there were some folks who noted, like Jason here again, that this seems to have been a setup. So he said, I was at the Religious Liberty Commission hearing. I saw Islamist Shamira Munshi, a fellow, and both of those pronunciations could be wrong, but a fellow advisory board member, pull out her phone to record the exchange with Carrie Perjean Bowler before she started speaking. Moreover, I spoke to the man sitting behind Munshi, who said she was texting Perjean questions/comments that she then read verbatim on stage. Go look at the video and you'll see she's often reading from her phone. And we watched some clips yesterday. She was reading from her phone. That is true. Perjean is clearly in cahoots with Islamist, just like Tucker. And she did defend Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. She's like, why do people keep mentioning them? Like, they're not anti-Semitic. And he said, I saw them walk out of the hearing together. They've clearly been collaborating for a while. So, yeah. And this was, I guess, a tweet that she had. This is every Zionist supremacist's worst nightmare. Muslims, Christians, and Jews all united under the banner of religious freedom. We condemn Zionist supremacy and the demanding we deny our individual faith for the fear of being called anti-Semite. Religious freedom lives on. Sheesh. You know, it's funny, these kind of tweets anyway, and people talking about Jewish supremacy and whatever their views on that are. I'm just like, I want everybody to be Christian. So I'm just like I want everybody to be able to exercise their liberties, but at the end of the day, I want everybody to be Christian. And I don't know, the Jews, they don't even like openly convert people. They like, I've heard discourage kind of people from converting. They were my impression going to Israel is they're just so very tolerant. I know there are groups of like more extremists who even do pick on um Christians who were there, and there's at least documentation and other stuff. I didn't witness anything like that. I didn't talk to anybody who experienced things like that. These are just kind of reports and other things that I've read, so I don't have any like anecdotal experience of that. My anecdotal experience is they were super tolerant, and I mentioned that yesterday, that we talked to someone who was like hiding for his life October the 7th, survived not because he was so brave or did something so smart. He just said he was lucky. And walked us around his neighborhood and show us where there are bullet holes and all kinds of different stuff. And someone asked about like, well, how do you feel about how Islam plays a role into all this? And his attitude was just like, well, you know, they're these people who believe one thing, they're born, you know, into their family, and we are born into their family, and Christians are born into their family, which, you know, that's not how we feel. Like, you have to actually convert. You have to have buy-in. You can be forced to go sit in a pew, but that's not going to get you to heaven, you know. But and it was, I don't know how everyone else kind of took it, but I'm just like, really? Like, that's your view? Now you're gonna put like a little bit more I guess condemnation on Islam, you know. But they obviously have Muslims and Arabs who live peaceably in Israel, among them all who have positions in the army, Supreme Court, and all kinds of different stuff. It's really not an apartheid state as people try to push it. And I don't even know what this girl also got into a back and forth with Lila Rose as well yesterday. Let me see if I don't know if I saved their interaction, but Lila Rose is just like, what is even your definition of anti-Semitism? Here we go. I do have it. Because Lila Rose had She was talking about the Epstein files or something. She said, pray for every child and young woman harmed by Epstein and other perpetrators. Their suffering matters, their lives matter, justice cannot be delayed. And she said, now mention Palestinian children murdered. I'll wait. And she said, Carrie, you have my phone number. You texted me. You've been on my show twice. You've asked to join, and I was happy to welcome you. Never in a phone call, a text, or in my studio do you once bring up the plight of children in Gaza to me, saying, Lila, please speak out. And if you had, instead of attacking me strangely on social media like this, instead of to my face, I would have said, Carrie, I have spoken out for the babies and people of Gaza many times in the past 2 years. Look through my ex post to see for yourself. I care deeply about every child. I hate war. Carrie, why are you doing this? For clicks? And just called her out. So I think Lila, I mean, I've never met Lila. She's someone, she obviously advocates, her main focus is to end abortion. We disagree on some things, but I guess mainly I have a kind of a more abolitionist perspective. So I guess prosecution and is a main thing that we probably debate about. But I really appreciate her courage and how she'll double down and defend her position when Trump was saying kind of some crazy stuff during the, not even kind of crazy stuff, but like out of pocket stuff during the primary, not the primary, the presidential election. Like in that whole time, she was calling him out, and people were like, "You're gonna ruin the election! Oh my gosh, how dare you!" And she's just like, "I care about babies. Like this is my main advocacy. Like I don't want Kamala to win, but I don't want Trump to be pro-choice and pushing bad things. So I'm going to speak out about this stuff, you know." So folks are really coming for Lila and trying to attack her, but she cares about what she cares about, her advocacy. So you know, I had to hand it to her because there were other pro-life groups that kind of kowtowed to Trump and the admin and to, I don't know, X Space and for influence, and wrote there were groups that wrote letters of congratulations, like when they put out the platform and stuff, even though the platform was purposely changed to push out like pro-life positions. And because there's a big change from like the 2024 from like 2026 platform when it comes to being pro-life, and we talked about those things at the time. But Lila and her organization, they don't care. They are going to push pro-life policies to end abortion, and I appreciate her. And Lila is Catholic. So I mean, I'm Protestant, she's Catholic, so we have disagreements as far as theological stuff there as well. But she didn't let Miss Carrie speak for her. So anyway, let me get to the whole "we fired her" tweet. Carrie Prejean Bowler has been removed from President Trump's Religious Liberty Commission. No member of the commission has a right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on any issue. This is clearly without question what happened Monday in our hearing on anti-Semitism in America. This was my decision. The commission has done outstanding work through 5 hearings 2 more are scheduled. The testimony has been both illuminating and heartbreaking. Under the Biden administration, Americans of all faiths had their religious liberty not only stolen from them, but were often punished for standing up for their faith in education, the military, the private sector, and even the ministry. This spring, the commission will deliver one of the most important reports in American history directly to the president. The president respects all faiths. He believes that all Americans have the right to receive the great inheritance given to them by our founding fathers in the First Amendment. I am grateful to President Trump for having the vision and boldness to create the commission, fighting for the word of God and religious freedom and what this nation was founded upon. Leading this fight will be one of his greatest legacies. Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, chair of President Trump's Religious Liberty Commission. Even like the statement, like the president respects all faiths. I respect that you have a right to believe what you want to believe. I do not respect all faiths. I want you to seek truth, and I believe I'm right on that issue. But so and there's obviously some people who believe some bonkers, absurd things, and there's people who believe things that directly contradict Christianity. So for example, Islam, they don't believe Jesus died on the cross. They don't believe that he was God or even claimed to be God. And if he didn't die on the cross, he obviously didn't resurrect. Some of them believe that he pieced out to India for a bit and other stuff. So, I don't respect this 600 after the year, this lie that came like 600 years later or whatever, to try to say that we got our faith wrong. So why should I respect that? I can respect that you live in the United States of America or places and you can freely worship and or whatever, but yeah, I want you to convert. I want you to convert. But I want people to be protected and have a liberty. And so I appreciate what the commission is doing, but I guess I'm curious where Carrie gets all of her ideas from as far as her outlook on Jewish supremacy and Zionist supremacy. Because again, it's not like Israel pushes out all other people, because it's just not how it works. Again, from my experience, super tolerant. I mean the case. There was one point we were caught in so much traffic because it was after like the call of prayer, and like people just stopped. Like we were in our bus, our tour bus, and just could not move. And when we were in Israel, and if people would feel that they were so, I don't know, intolerant or hated Muslims so much, or it's such an apartheid society, why do you think that they would just let everyone's life get interrupted like that when they go out and do their call of prayer? Like, so a lot of these complaints that these folks have, or ideas that they have, is just so bonkers bizarre to me. But I know she's watching Candace every day, and that she said that she did. Candace is telling people that, they believe everybody else is animals, and that they hate Black people, and that they created pornography and all sorts of other things because they hate Christians and Catholics, and they want to derail America. They want to derail the world and rule the world, and that they're the ones who are responsible, that you should hate them for the slave trade, and I guess not white people, so they get absolved for their role in it and all. And so if she's listening to Tucker is telling people that they believe in, supremacy, and that's why they can just decide to murder women and children, which isn't the case of what happened. I'm not saying that women and children did not die, but in warfare, especially in urban warfare, you do have civilian casualties, but the idea that that they're committing a genocide, or that they're like gleefully killing women and children, or that they're purposely doing it, is just not the case. That was, man, just going there, talking to people who are serving in the IDF, people who have served in the IDF, people who are high up in the IDF, they hate that stuff so much. As far as killing civilians, they hate that. And one person said to me, this is when we were like up like in the Golem Heights and stuff, person who was driving us around in a Jeep, he said, we were just talking about like a church that was hit, and collateral damage, and lives that were taken and so on. And he's like, there's no excuse for things like that, and loss of life is always terrible. And he said that I can forgive Hamas for killing our children. I can't forgive them for making us kill their children because they hide behind them. That was their attitude, or at least that particular attitude. But a lot of them were just like, we just want to live in peace. Like, this is such a terrible, awful thing that was done, but we just want to live in peace, and we can work on trying to forgive and all this stuff. And it was just, to be frank, kind of remarkable. You know, but people like Tucker and Candace want you to believe that these people are hostile, bloodthirsty, kill everybody, even though that's not what they did, even though they did their best to minimize civilian casualties. If they wanted to nuke them, they could have nuked them. If they wanted to just really wipe everybody out, they could have. They didn't have to do leaflet drops and texts and move people around, etc., etc. They didn't have to do any of those things. They didn't have to do that. So I don't. So when Carrie talks about this is their worst nightmare for with the Zionists want, this is supremacy and blah blah blah, and we're gonna have Christians and Jews and Muslims together. Yeah, maybe the Jews that I don't like Norman Finkelstein, who don't like Israel and will bash other Jews, and so maybe the ones who will capitulate to the things that you once said, who would prop up your narrative. Maybe those folks. But I've said it before, like, and I'll say it again, I don't trust people who are really trying to pacify the threat of Islam. You want to call it radical Islam or Islamic fundamentalism is a good way to put it. I don't trust that. I don't. And before Charlie died, it's funny that she mentioned the Hamptons thing and asked about what happened in the Hamptons, because that was a conspiracy that Candace was pushing. But Seth Dillon was like, one of the things we discussed was the threat of like radical Islam and the threat to the West, how that posed a huge threat to the West. And Charlie thought that the two biggest threats were Islam and Marxism in the guise of like wokeism. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And instead of talking about the radical wokeism, Marxist ideology that actually led to Charlie's death, people are trying to tell you that the Jews did it. The Jews are somehow involved. And by the way, Qatar and Iran and you know, all the stuff are actually pretty good, or you shouldn't be so afraid of it. It's very interesting, the turn of events that have been going on. Anyway, she's got a lot of followers now, this lady, but she probably came to hijack. I'm gonna say something that I've been saying. I said yesterday. I said it over the weekend. I said it at the beginning of the week because of that video that the Trump folks put out. They have to be better about this stuff. She should have never been on that kind of panel. She should have, like, her social media, her history and stuff. Being a Candace Owens super fan, like, how did she get that position? Maybe someone was aware of her position, and that's why she was on that panel. And again, if it's about religious liberty, there's far more qualified people who should be sitting on that panel to talk about these issues rather than her. But it's just a bad look for the administration, and not everyone who's obviously working for Trump is actually for Trump. Not for advancing his agenda. They know he's not going to be there for that much longer. He's got these 3 last years. He's a lame duck, and then we got to debate and pick the new kind of person who will lead the charge and where our policies are going to go, and so on and so forth. So I think there's people within the Trump administration who are undermining him. I don't think that's new, but they got to get a handle of it. Before I let you go, let me just play this flashback clip of this beauty queen that we're talking about. So, this person on the panel, Miss Carrie, this was her back in the day.
Vermont recently became the 4th state to legalize same-sex marriage. Do you think every state should follow suit? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's great that Americans are able to.
I'm sorry. I just short out for a second.
Vermont recently became the 4th state to legalize same-sex marriage. Do you think every state should follow suit? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's great that Americans are able to choose one or the other. We live in a land you can choose same-sex marriage or opposite marriage. And you know what? In my country, in my family, but that's how I was raised, that it should be between a man and woman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Opposite marriage. Opposite marriage. So, opposite marriage, girl. I think a lot of folks just really want to be famous, and they don't care how they get there. But I will end on this note. There was a friend of mine. She has over 1 million followers on TikTok. Her name is This Is Savvy, and she just did this warning that always stuck with me. And I think she was talking about book talk and how sometimes they're toxic. But she just said, however you get your following is how you have to keep your following. So if you're someone who gets your following and you decide to do a bunch of controversial stuff, toxic stuff, and that's why people decide to follow you, you're going to have to keep that energy up. And is that really who you want to be? So there's people who will say and things, do anything, say lies, make up rumors, lead with crazy sort of stories, thread any sort of needle to get clicks and views. And one day, what's going to happen when the truth comes out? There's this guy on TikTok, Scotty K Fitness, who doxed somebody. He had like over 4 million followers, and he doxed someone because they said he looked like a gay character from Ozark or something. And then he's like, I can let a lot of comments slide, but not this homophobia. And I'm like, how is that? Like, is that really that homophobic that you decide to dox him? And when I say dox, he had information about his home, how many bedrooms it was, like I think the names of his kids, and just a lot of some of the digits of his phone number, like a lot of personal information that he just decided to throw out there to say, hey, I can hurt you. And then all this other problematic stuff started coming out about him. And then he like admitted, like, he did an apology video that didn't really go well. And then he did another video that was just kind of like, yeah, I've been living a lie. Because I guess he does a lot of woke content too, or got into that field, even got away from doing just strictly sports stuff, and wanted to appeal to a crowd for politics and whatever, and eventually was trying to grandstand with that particular comment about him looking like a gay character and saying it was homophobia, and he went too far, and he lost sponsorship and all kinds of different stuff. So he has to figure out a way to sort of reinvent himself to try to salvage what he has, you know. But you could just say what you really mean, feel how you really feel, be open to changing and debating and things like that. But you can't be thirsty for fame. You know, if you're thirsty for it, you'll do anything for it. And I just, that's not how I want to live. If I gotta just talk to a handful of people at 4 o'clock every day, and that's just what it'll be. But I just couldn't live kind of selling my soul to say any kind of little thing. That's not me. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktunes.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost a stream. Run my site, all that's the good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. And if you guys want to check out any of my merch, you guys can do that. But I also have different books you guys can check out. Look at this big bundle here. This isn't even actually me with all of them. I gotta order some and do a new picture, but looking forward to when I got some new ones too. But God bless you guys, and I'll see you later.